Moses was so upset, he threw down the tablets and broke them. And I know he was super mad because he saw the people sinning, worshiping false gods, and that really made him mad. But then he had to go back up the mountain to get a new fresh pair of tablets. Good morning everyone, it's a beautiful day in Craw Park. Thank you all so much for watching, I sincerely appreciate it. If you're new here, my name is Jonathan. In this series, we're reading the Bible from cover to cover. If you want to hear more content just like this, consider subscribing below. Alright, let's get into the video. So jumping back in Exodus 17, we see that the Israelites are still traveling on their journey to their promised land. Now these Hebrew people are something else. These are the same people that just watched miracle after miracle of them being delivered from Egypt. And only a few months after they left Egypt, they were about to stone Moses because they were so worried about what was going on. Their doubt and unbelief had just come back. And it's crazy because they were just delivered. Now, even though the people had just complained about food, and God gave them bread in the morning and meat at night, now they were thirsty again. And so God allows Moses to perform a miracle where he extracts water from a rock. Sometime after that, the Bible says that the Hebrew people encountered the Amalekites. God allowed the Hebrew people to fight the Amalekites and had Joshua lead the battle. But when his arms began to fall, his people began to lose. So interestingly enough, Aaron and Hur got a rock for Moses to sit upon. And while Moses was seated, they lifted up his arms throughout the entire day until sunnight. While Moses was seated, Aaron and Hur were able to lift his arms and eventually win the battle. So in chapter 18, we see that Jethro, which is Moses' father-in-law, comes to visit him. Jethro observes Moses being judge and jury for all the Hebrew people. So from this, Moses established judges across every tribe of Israel to ensure order and peace throughout the land. So quick note here, we know that sometimes the Bible repeats certain stories to provide different perspective. We'll see this same story come up in Deuteronomy, but we'll get there later. So 2 months after leaving Egypt, we see that God's people have arrived to Mount Sinai, which means mountain of God. God essentially uses this mountain as a conference room, as a way to communicate with Moses. Now I don't know how big this mountain is, but the Bible says that Moses had to go up the mountain to talk to God, and then go back down the mountain to deliver the word to the people. So on one of his trips, Moses stayed on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and that is when God gave him the 10 Commandments. Now I'm not going to go through all of them, but essentially the 10 Commandments is called the Decalogue, are essentially 10 rules and principles to live by. Apparently, God has created the Hebrew people with a very short memory. As I just said, Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. When he came back, he thought that the people had already created a false idol and were worshiping it. Moses was so upset, he threw down the tablets and broke them. And I know he was super mad because he saw the people sinning, worshiping false gods, and that really made him mad. But then he had to go back up the mountain to get a new fresh pair of tablets. Now we often talk about the 10 Commandments, but actually God gave them several rules about how to live and how to conduct themselves. A few of these instructions and laws included how to build an altar, the death penalty, a death for a death, property laws, etc. This portion of the Bible also mentions 3 festivals. The Festival of Thin Bread, which we talked about in our last video, the Harvest Festival, which occurs during the springtime, and the Festival of Shelters, which happens in the autumn. So after God gives the people this litany of rules, he sends an angel down to help guide them to the promised land. And God says that their promised land will stretch from the Red Sea to the Euphrates, from the Mediterranean Sea to the desert. So while they were at Mount Sinai, God allowed Moses to bring up the 70 leaders that he had from Israel. Now this is amazing. The Bible says that a select few people actually got to see God. So getting back to these people and their false god, as Moses was talking to God, God stopped the conversation and said, hey, I need you to go back down the mountain because your people are acting crazy. And God was so upset, he was about to wipe them off the face of the earth. But between God changing his mind and Moses presenting his side of the case, God spared his people. And this is where God snaps. He says, look, you lead them to the promised land because if I did, I'll kill them before they get there. Like, dang. So before I close this video, I want to touch on one thing, which is the special sacred tent that God allowed Moses to create. And God was very specific. He gave them very detailed instructions about how to create this tent and everything inside of it, including the altar and the sacred chest. The Bible also mentions that there was a courtyard around the sacred tent. The Bible refers to this as a sacred chest, but also as the Ark of the Covenant. Among other things, this is where the glory of God lived and was able to be kept with the people of Israel throughout the entire journey. And that's going to conclude our video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. If you haven't already, think about subscribing below. I'll see you guys next week. Oh yeah, we still rocking the GT cup, different cup, but you know what it is. Yeah.